friends. This is John, your host of Dairyland Frights. And make sure, wherever you listen to Dairyland Frights, to rate and subscribe us. Give us 5 stars. We truly appreciate it. And make sure you give us a review so we can see how we can improve the show, make it better, and stay spooky. Welcome to Dairyland Frights, the paranormal podcast that covers everything spooky, creepy, and mysterious in the Midwest and beyond. And today, I have a great guest on, one of my fellow podcasters, Ashley from the Ghost Gossip Podcast. Welcome, Ashley.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yes, I checked out your podcast. I really love it. You have a lot of fun talking to guests about the paranormal and other things. You kind of talk sometimes about life and
Yeah, we go off on tangents sometimes, but that's okay.
and that's all right. That's what makes it fun and everything. Hey, I'm the tangent king. You get started on something and then you're like, hey, I wonder if dogs see ghosts. Maybe that, yeah. Then we start talking about that, right? And you're
Yes.
like, yeah, my dog used to bark at this one room all the time and there was nobody in that room. And I'm like, cool. Or, would like start to whine or something like that. And then I just think that's fun. You get off on those tangents and have a little bit of fun with it and everything like that. So why don't you tell my spooky friends about your podcast, like what it's about, like what do you cover, so they can, check you out later.
Well, the name of the podcast is Ghost Gossip. I literally just talk about anything paranormal related, whether it be ghosts or spirits or sleep paralysis or haunted locations. And it really is just a wide or vast, you name it, we talk about it. And that's one of the beauties of gossip because, it can really go anywhere. My husband is on every once in a while with me and we discuss haunted locations. And because he comes for the history, I come from the hauntings. So I tell him the history and then I tell him the hauntings. And that kind of like lures him in to do this with me every once in a while. And then I talk to investigators. I talk to psychic mediums. I talk to people with ghost stories. And then I also read individuals' ghost stories on an episode of Listener Happenings. So it's just a really wide variety of topics and it's a lot of fun. We love it.
Yeah, I've been listening to some of your episodes and they're really fun. And of course, following you on Instagram and everything like that. And you have a lot of fun. And also, it gets a little spooky sometimes, a little scary. And that's okay though, because I think the paranormal world is full of interesting things, fascinating things, as well as scary things, obviously, but also fun things and, very heartfelt things that people don't understand. It's not always about, it's Hollywood. They gotta have the blood and the guts but most of the time it's just like a lot of people just trying to find out what's out there and what does it mean, right? And
That's
I think
right.
that's interesting. Yeah. So one thing I always like to ask my guests is, what inspired you to do this podcast?
Well, I bought a haunted house and I was living in it and I was feeling crazy, absolutely crazy. And I truly was like, okay, I got to do something. I got to figure out what is going on. And I have to talk about it because I am a processor. I'm just like, I have to talk things through. And my husband wasn't experiencing things like I was because I'm sensitive. He's not. And I was like, I know that this is not just me because you talk to anybody and you mention a haunted house and they're going to be like, my grandmother lived in a haunted house, or well, I stayed with a friend and we played a Ouija board. There's always something. So I was like, I just want to talk about it. And that's how I started. And that was 3 years ago. And here we are. And I don't have the haunted house anymore, but I am still talking about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So haunted, that can mean a lot. What experiences did you have in that house?
I experienced shadow people. I experienced lights coming on and off. I experienced moving objects, noises, footsteps. The first thing that I noticed was that overwhelming feeling of always being watched and like you're never alone. And that was kind of like my first inkling that something was kind of off. Orbs. I know orbs are debatable, but the orbs that I would see were unlike any other orbs I've ever seen before. And they had direction. They would change direction. It's like, it was very strange. I think one of the scariest things that I experienced in that house and only in that house was sleep paralysis. And also, I know depends on who you talk to, astral projection. It was very weird. It was crazy.
Yeah. So let's talk about a little bit about sleep paralysis and everything like that. That it's kind of a serious thing, dealing with people who go through it. What was like your experience? Were you just frozen? Did you see something or what was kind of going on?
My very first experience, I remember it like it happened yesterday. I was dreaming that I was ghost hunting with Sam and Colby in the house of all the people. Yeah.
Right?
They were in the old owner's bedroom, which was my daughter's bedroom. And I remember I was looking in this little attic space because her room had like one of those little doors that went to the attic. And they were looking in there. And I remember seeing this like figure. And I felt like he was targeting my daughter. And I was like, no, if you want to mess with somebody, you have to mess with me. You come through me.
Yeah.
When I said that in my dream, I got sucked back into my body. And when my eyes opened, I was in complete sleep paralysis. And I didn't see anything, but I could feel this thing in my room over my bed. And I didn't know what was happening. I had never had it before, but something in me said, pray. And so I tried to say the Our Father. And the more I tried to pray, the more I couldn't remember the words of the Our Father. And I was starting to like my eyes were moving and I was watching this. Like I said, I couldn't see anything, but I could feel it over me. And I just kept, Our Father, Our Father, Our Father. And then finally I was able to force it out. And when I said amen, I went back to sleep and it was done. And
Yeah.
every time after that, I would kind of got more control over it and I could finally say the whole prayer. And the last time I had it, I said, leave me alone. And I went back to sleep.
There you go. Come on. We all need to sleep. What was the history of your house?
I was the second owner. It was built in 1999, and the guy that built it, he had a oh, he's gonna get mad at me for even talking about it. He doesn't like when I talk about him, but he it's like he just knows. I was talking about it last night, and I could tell he kinda made an appearance, but anyway, story for another time. He loved the house. Him and his mother lived in the house. It was set up to be like a multi-generational home. She lived on the main floor, he lived on the second floor, and he ran his business out of the basement. And they lived there together until 2018 when he died. He died in the kitchen. He had an allergic reaction to an injection and ended up dying in the kitchen. And his mother was put into like a retirement facility where she died 4 months later. And then the house sat vacant until 2021 when the housing market boomed. And then here I come around with 3 children and 4 animals and my goofy husband, and we need the space, and we bought the house. And he did not like women, he did not like children, he did not like animals, and here we came barreling into that house, and we were very much disruptive to his afterlife.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I hear that a lot, even with apartments. I've
Mm.
had people tell me a story where they moved into an apartment where an older couple, an older man, whatever, older woman lived in this apartment. And when they started, I don't know if this happened to you, this is very subtle, but when they started moving the furniture, they didn't like it. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh,
Like, when
yeah.
they moved in and they would move the furniture a certain way, like, it would get pushed back. Like, they would wake up in the morning and the chair would be pushed back,
Oh,
right? Did
yeah,
anything like that happen to you?
I knocked down walls. Oh, I made him mad. I took out
There you
walls.
go.
The house looked like it was stuck in the episode of 90210. No lie. It had sponge paint walls. It was all pastel green and pink, and sometimes a little bit of baby blue in there. And it had tile. We're talking like 4 different types of tile just on the main floor. I mean,
Okay.
it was wild. It made no sense. And so I came in and I had a vision. I was like, "Ooh, we can make this ours." And so I ripped walls out and I took out fixtures and I painted everything. And boy, he did not like that. He thought I was tearing up his house. And then
Yeah.
towards the end, he was better. But in the beginning, it was a lot. It made him very mad.
Yeah. And that's really interesting to me because and your house is not 1999, you said?
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. So it's not that old,
No.
and because usually you come across, I moved in this house, it's from the 1800s, and I start, renovating the kitchen and all hell breaks loose, right?
Mhm.
And, yeah, that's so interesting. Did you ever, except for that, sleep paralysis and some other things, did you ever feel, like, threatened?
Oh,
Like,
yeah. Mhm.
really?
Oh, yeah, he was looming. It was a negative, oppressive feeling all the time.
That's intere so, you don't have to bring this up, but if you want to, were you ever attacked or were you ever, like, hair pulled, bruises, stuff like that?
He poked me in my back one night. I felt a finger right in my back, and I was like, "Don't touch me." It's No, he never really. So the first year and a half was the worst because that's when I was actively trying to get him out of the house, and then once I realized I couldn't get him out, I was like, "We can stay here together, but you've got to stop messing with my kids, you got to stop messing with me." My husband's oblivious. He's like, "Da, da, 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 da," living his best life, but the kids were experiencing him. My one daughter was seeing him, and, like, he was reaching for her in the middle of the night, and, she was scared to death, and I was like, "You've got to stop that, but here is your room. You can stay in this room. This is your room, and we'll leave you alone," and things got better, but he never attacked, but the first year we lived there, I got very sick. Like, I'm talking about migraines every day to the point where I had a CT scan. Like, I honestly thought I was going crazy. I was having all sorts of pain. And there was nothing that could explain it medically. I mean, we got test run, CT scans, all sorts of blood work, and there was absolutely nothing wrong with me. And when I told him, "Hey, we can stay here together, you just got to back off,"
Yeah.
I got better. And I rarely have migraines now. It was like every single day. It was horrible.
Yeah. And you said your husband just what? Dealt with it?
Oblivious. The only thing that he
Interesting.
experienced, like, see, he was not a believer for a long time. He was very skeptical, and I am a sensitive and an intuitive and a believer. And so we are different sides of the spectrum. And it wasn't until he was by himself in the living room doing a test, studying for this huge licensing exam he had. And I was asleep. And one night he heard footsteps, and the kids were with their other parents that weekend. And he heard the footsteps move into the room over our bedroom. And he thought I went upstairs. Well, he came in there and I was asleep. And he's like, "That was weird." Well, I heard them too. I thought he had gone upstairs. I heard them before I fell asleep. Well, the next day, right around that same time period, he was working in the living room and the sunroom light came on. And he said, "I don't need that on right now. Can you turn it off?" And the light went off. And he's like, "Okay, it's time to go to bed." So that's when
Yeah.
he started to believe. But our ghost really left my husband alone. He really liked my husband.
Hmm. Interesting. So, 2 last questions to do with your house. 1, did you ever bring in priest, a medium, somebody to sage your house, cleanse it, bless it?
I saged my house. I did a horrible job. The first time I did it, it was absolutely horrible. I didn't know what I was doing. The second time I had somebody come in and it helped, but it affected me a lot. It was one of those, like, when we got to the kitchen, like, everything was feeling better, but when we got to the kitchen, I started to almost go into like an anaphylaxis shock, and I couldn't breathe, I couldn't swallow, I couldn't, like, take an inhale or anything, and I didn't know what was happening. And then the smoke detector in his old room went off, and we weren't near it, and it was almost like he just, like, went out, but he didn't leave. He was still around after that. He just wasn't as much of an asshole. I don't know if I can say that on your podcast, but
You
he
go
wasn't.
right ahead. You can say whatever you want.
He
We
calmed down a little bit.
Yeah,
He calmed down and had the house blessed, and he calmed down, and it really was after I told him, "We can stay here together. You just gotta chill out. Like, stop being an ass."
yeah, yeah,
And he turned into, like, a little grumpy grandpa.
yeah. That's typically what I've heard from people. What fascinates me too is speaking to a number of people of haunted houses on my podcast. One, they say, and maybe this is similar for you too. It's not like the movies where you come home and there's debris flying around, and then
Right.
whatever. It's kind of like there are better days. It's like, oh, it's not too bad today, and then there's other days where it's a little bit testy and you gotta be like, "Okay," like you said, "Hey, you're being an ass, knock it off. I need to get my sleep, and,
Mhm.
you just chill out," or whatever. And again, it all comes down to people forget ghosts were people, right? They're just like you and me, right? So, eventually, when we pass on and let's say someone comes into our house, and I don't know if we're stuck there, hopefully not, but if we are, and someone does what you're doing, ripping out homes and a bunch of animals running around, your dogs and cats and kids screaming and popsicles on the
Aside.
wall and yeah, 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 and things like that, right? You're gonna be mad. You're gonna be like, I built that kitchen. What are you
Yeah.
doing?" And they're like, "Smash, smash,
Yeah.
smash." Those are custom
I know.
cabinets.
Yeah, I know, and that's what I had to tell my kids, like, I'm like, "You have to remember he was once alive, and he wasn't nice when he was alive. It's not like he was this super sweet guy when he was alive. I know a lot about
Yeah,
this guy. He was not friendly." And so, I always tell the kids, if you have somebody who wasn't that friendly in life, more than likely, they're not that friendly in death either.
correct, correct.
He's not a demon, he's not bad, he's just grumpy.
He's just a jerk, right? Yeah, he's
Yeah,
a curmudgeon, if you wanna use a
yes,
fancy word, you know?
that's right.
So I have to know when you sold your house, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you tell the new owners, "No, it was
No.
haunted"?
No, we didn't have to, and I talked to my realtor about it. In the state I'm in, we didn't have to disclose it. If they asked, we could've, but because they didn't ask, it was one of those things when it comes to haunting, it's kinda like my husband, they can be very subjective to who is
Right.
experiencing them.
Absolutely,
One person can experience one thing and the other person won't.
absolutely. Yeah, and that happens too because we've probably done stories on it or have read stories or you've gotten stories from your guests or your listeners, I should say, where it's like I was a little girl and it just centered on me, and then when I moved out, nothing happened again, right? And
Exactly.
that's always fascinating to me, like, why does it choose certain people? Like, you can go in and nothing's happening, and then the next people who move in are like, "Hey, you didn't tell me this house is haunted," and you're like, "Really wasn't, I heard stuff, but I'm not," you know? And there's not much you can do, right? I mean, it's just that's the way the spirits take over. So let's talk about your podcast.
Okay.
What episode have you done that surprised you, Ashley, that you had a guest on or a topic that you went, "Huh, I never really thought about it that way."
Goodness. My psychic medium friends are always ones that make me go, "Huh," because they are the way they see things, they always blow my mind. Hold on, let me think, because 'cause I've been doing this for about 3 years, and I'm just like, "Let me think."
Yeah.
Oh, I have a good one, I have a good one. I had her name is Taylor. She collects haunted dolls.
Oh, the worst.
And she has, like,
Sorry.
40 in her house, and I love her dearly, and her dolls are precious. As a sensitive, I mean, they every time she was talking about one, I got a headache, I got nauseous, I got butterflies in my stomach, I felt dizzy, and I would keep asking her, she goes, "Oh, that's Jessica. Oh, that's," and she was just going through, and that changed my thought as to how I feel about haunted dolls. I'm still terrified of them. I don't want them in my house.
Me
But
too.
also yeah, also the Ouija board episode. I had the manager and owner of the Ouija board museum in Salem. I interviewed him, and I'm actually gonna meet him in a month.
He's nice. Yeah, I love that, because, again, both you wonder, right? I mean, the
Mhm.
most famous doll out of them all is really 2, maybe 3. Annabelle, right? Robert the
Oh, yeah.
doll.
Oh, yeah.
And I think
Oh, yeah.
there's one other one. I'm trying to think if there's one other one, but basically, those dolls are
Peggy.
oh, yeah, are considered, the top of the top. Now, I don't know what you think. Annabelle to me is kind of a I don't know, how do I say? Like, I don't think something's that powerful, and it is, why is it out and about? Like, it's bringing it like if you bring it like a nuclear missile and just start bringing it to parties and be like,
Taking
"Look
it
at this
on
nuclear
tour.
missile. I got
Look at
the
the
launch
needle that I
to
got.
whoopee, guys.
I'm
Don't
bringing
hey,
it to your house.
here's the red button. I'm gonna push it. Ah, ha, ha, ha." You know? Yeah, I get it. Robert the Doll, if
Mhm.
that is in a case in a Florida museum. They make it very, very clear. Do not take a picture, or if you do, say thank you. They have rules, right?
Yes.
So it's easier, right? And I know I haven't interviewed him, but I love to get the head of the museum on there. But I do have had guests on who have been at the museum and have talked to the person who is the caretaker of Robert the Doll, and have said, we have strict policies in place to protect ourselves, staff, as well as the guests. But Annabelle, we're just bringing it around and give me $50, and you can see it. Does that make sense to you, Ashley?
Yeah, and I'm not I mean, why they have her out and about, no, it doesn't make sense, but I'm not gonna talk bad about her. "Annabelle, how you doing, girl?" I'm not talking bad about her. No, no. Or, "Robert, how you doing, honey? You good? Thank you. You're welcome. Bye-bye." All the things.
Absolutely.
Nope. And then
Absolutely.
I met Peggy the doll. She's in Zach Bagans, and you have to say, "Hello, Peggy," and "Goodbye, Peggy," and you bet your bottom I was like, "Hi, Peggy girl. I'm not looking at you, honey. I'm not gonna look at you in your eye. I think that's Robert's doll, but I'm just gonna make a good lesson out of it. I'm not gonna look any doll in the eye. Goodbye. Bye, girl. I'll see you later. You stay here." Oh, yeah. Just in case.
Yeah, right? It's hard because, again, you don't know if you're doing it, if you're doing it together. There's a whole bunch of things, associated with it. Yeah, and I love psychics and mediums and empaths too. I think they're fascinating people, and I think we've all listened to your podcast. I think we've had the good ones on. Hopefully,
Mhm.
we don't know what they do in their personal life, but we do know that in their professional life they sound, very forward and very nice and willing to help. You said you're a sensitive. I'm glad I'm not because that can be difficult, right? Sometimes, so do you ever have I don't know, something like an incident or something that maybe you've gone into maybe someone's house or you've been in a building or something and what, man, this doesn't feel right. I mean, how do you handle that? Do you tell the person like,
No. Yeah, so, like, for example, my sister's bird died the other week, and when I was walking into her house, I touched her doorknob, and I was like, "Her bird's gonna die." And I was like, "But what am I supposed to do? Hey, Amy, your bird's gonna croak today, and, what if it didn't?" So, I didn't say anything, and then the next morning, I get a text, "Hey, the bird died," and I was like, and,
dang it.
so there was a house that when we were house hunting before we bought the haunted house, I went in and I told my husband, I was like, "God, this house feels so sad. I think somebody died of COVID." And then I found out a few days later that the husband died of COVID 6 months before the house went on the market. And so, yes, I have premonitions, I get stuff like that, and it's usually nothing I can do about anything. It's just the gift of knowing, but there's nothing I can do about it.
It's kind of a blessing and a curse at the same time, right? Because it's a
It is.
blessing that maybe, I don't know, from time to time you could maybe prevent something, and I don't know if that's true. Yeah, I'm just throwing it out here, but maybe, someone's going, "Hey, I'm going, I don't know, water skiing tomorrow." And
Mhm.
maybe you have a premonition of them drowning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know what you do with that. Do you just go, "Hey, maybe you don't wanna go water skiing. Maybe you just wanna hang out on the picnic," or something, I
What
don't know.
What I typically do, it's the most beneficial with my kids. They hate it. I think it's great because I can usually tell when they're up to something, and that's mother's intuition, but it goes to another level when it comes to me and my kids. And I'll like pop out and I'll be like, "Don't do that." And they'll be like, "How does she always know?" But I'll just I just know. And then my husband, he has a medical condition, and every once in a while it'll just hit me. He hasn't taken his medicine. And I'll message him and I'm like, "Did you take your medicine?" And he's like, "No." And then so he'll come back home. And so stuff like that. So with the people that are close to me, I'm comfortable reaching out. Now with the dead bird, I didn't wanna do that. But I have one of my best friends has a situation right now, and she was talking to me, and I got, like, a little premonition, and all I said was, "Don't let your guard down." And that was I'm not gonna give her advice. I don't do readings. I don't do this. I don't do that. It's just, "Hey, honey, I know this is going on. Don't let your guard down."
Right. That's why it's a blessing and a curse,
It
right?
is. It is.
And that's tough. I mean,
Yeah.
that's why I'm glad I'm not. One of the things with that is I don't know if you've spoken to any of your psychics or mediums or empaths or however you wanna, categorize them or clarify them, but one of mine I had on, she talks about spirit guide. I have
Mhm.
4, by the way. I'm not trying to brag.
Very cool. Very
But anyway, what was fascinating, I never put it up on my site, and the reason why, because it was so personal. Like, she could channel my spirit guide, and she was going through it, and And I was gonna put it up, and then I was like, I'm not gonna, that's too personal." Because the spirit guides knew stuff. There's no way, Ashley, there's no way, unless she hacked into my medical records, hacked into my tax records, hacked into everything. I mean, it's not I get it. A lot of people can argue, well, they can look at your Facebook, your Instagram, your X, Twitter, whatever, or talk to some people, and they can give a pretty good idea what's going on. I get that.
Mhm.
But also, like, 1, that's a lot of work.
Yeah,
2, I was not paying her for anything. She was doing this
exactly.
on her own, you know, just to talk through stuff. And, again, I think that's fascinating because I get a lot of pushback. Do you get any pushback from some of your listeners about the mediums? Anybody reach out to you and go like, "All come on. What is"
No,
okay.
I'm sure I will at some point, and I respect everybody's beliefs. You believe what you wanna believe. That is the beautiful part of being who we are. We have that ability to believe what we wanna believe. Just don't be a dick about it, you know?
Yeah,
And
right.
if you don't believe in what I do, like paranormal or being I call it a baby psychic medium. I don't the medium part I struggle with. The psychic part with the visions and stuff, I can understand. But, you don't have to be a jerk. Kindness goes a long way. It's okay if you don't believe in what I believe, and it's okay if I don't believe in what you believe, and we can still have a conversation and be friends. That's okay.
Absolutely. And I think me and you doing these podcasts, our main goal, I feel, at least for me, is demystify, let people come out with stuff
Mhm.
because there's some people who've been carrying, and maybe you've had someone, I haven't listened to all your episodes, I've just listened to some, but people had an experience when they were 6, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they carried that. Now they're in their 30s, 40s, whatever. And you
Mhm.
carry that with you and you can't talk to anybody about it. It is my one of my favorite stories is about one of my guests. She was 6 and she saw a ghost and she said to her mom, "Mom, I see a ghost and I'm scared and everything." "Ah, you're dreaming, you're sleeping, whatever, it doesn't matter."
Right.
She turns 18. Guess what? Full disclosure, the mom and dad, "Yep, this is a haunted house. There are ghosts. You're right. Everything what you saw was good."
Surprise.
Guys, what? Like,
Yeah.
huh? I get it as a parent. We're both parents. I get
Right.
it. We don't wanna tell our, my kids are older now. I don't know what your kids' age is, but you don't wanna tell your 6-year-old, "You know what? I've been seeing this shadow person in my closet too, and it's got this
You're
piercing
right.
piercing red eyes. It just
It's the
stares at me.
boogeyman.
It's the
Congratulations.
it's the boogeyman." "Okay, good night. See ya. I'll see you in the morning, sweetie."
Yep.
Click. No. So you gotta bounce,
Yep.
but
Hope you sleep good. Love you.
oh, wait, what's going on? Or, people are like, they're just you probably agree with me, there's thousands of stories out there people still haven't told, right? Because
Yep. That's right.
they're still too, I don't know, whatever. I like it when everybody knows. I don't know about if you work or where you work, but, like, where I work, I make it pretty much well known, every place I've worked, that I'm into the paranormal and I like freaky stuff and everything. And what's funny is people do come up to me and, will be like, "Hey, John," and they'll tell me, like, this story about, "Isn't that great?" I think it's great, you know?
Awesome. It's awesome. And because what you're doing is you're freeing up that mental load that they've been carrying, and they're like, "I'm not alone."
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And you don't feel like you're crazy too, right? Like, "Am I crazy? Like, do I really need professional help?" I
And
don't know.
maybe.
Maybe, maybe you do, but yeah. So, before we get to our topic here, Ashley, what scares you the most in the
In the
paranormal?
paranormal?
Yes.
That's a good one. Probably. I don't know. I don't get scared a lot. The time that I was the scaredest was the sleep paralysis, of course, when I could not remember the prayer. That's what scared me. It felt very heavy, very negative, very oppressive. But the one time that I saw a shadow figure that was about 7 feet tall, that was pretty scary. And I won't lie, the idea of entities and crawlers terrify me. Anything that's super heavy and negative, especially if it's crawling towards me, the thought of it, I don't even wanna go there.
I have a weird one, but maybe it's not so weird. And I have a weird one where I'm in a field, like an empty field, and then all of a sudden, something's coming towards me, and I can't move. You know what I mean? Something is
Yeah.
running towards me, a creature, an entity, a shadow, and I can't move. And it's just keeps closer and closer and closer.
Is that
You
a
know what I
dream that
mean?
you
That is a dream I have had,
had? Mm,
and it's really bizarre. And not that I live here in Wisconsin. There's fields everywhere and forests and
right.
everything like that. It
Oh,
doesn't scare me. What's more scary to me, at least in my area, is winter. In the summer, I'm not so scared. I don't know why. Hearing the bugs, the moonlight, stuff like that, no big deal. But in the winter, where it's like just nothing, it's just
cold
barren and
and
it's
dark.
cold and whatever, it's just terrible.
Yeah.
Awesome. So thank you for sharing that, Ashley. So let's get into our topic. I think you'll like this one.
Okay.
So w- I haven't done this topic in a while, and I found this and I said, gotta love it. The topic today is, and if you've heard about this, please share as well as during. I tell all my guests, please, when I'm reading the history and stuff, just chime on in. It's all good. It's a script, but it's not a script. I'm going to be like, dang it, Ashley, you screwed me up. I got to start again. Take
Okay.
two. So today we are going to cover the Eloise Psychiatric Hospital in Ashland, Michigan. So this is a very least known. Everyone knows Transit Allegheny and all the other big ones, But I'm gonna read a little history here, and I think you're gonna be blown away by like, oh, I didn't know this.
You got
Eloise
notebook. What you talk about?
Eloise was once a city unto itself. It had 75 buildings. It had a police department, a fire department, a dairy, a pig farm, a bakery, and a school. So it was unlike other psychiatric hospitals, which is just a hospital, right? And typically maybe there's some other buildings around it. Here's the thing, though. This blew me away. I always like to start out with these fun facts. They're fun, scary facts. 100 people are buried in the Potter's Field, many unidentified. So they have over 7,000 people, Ashley,
Oh my
unmarked
gosh.
graves. And the other thing is, they don't know where half these bodies are. You know what I'm saying? Like they literally were like,
My
that's a good, let's just throw the person in there. As,
wow.
so and what's funny is when I've looked at some of the other, psychiatric hospitals, asylums, what do you wanna call them? They've had, like, maybe a couple thousand or nobody really knows the answer. No, they know from certain records it's at least that. And let me stress that. It's at least that,
So there could be
right?
more.
Could be more. So let's talk a little bit about the history. This sprawling complex operated from 1809 to early 1982, starting out as a poorhouse and farm. So for people, I'll just repeat again, and maybe you're familiar with this, Ashley, maybe not, but a poorhouse or a farm, basically you couldn't pay your debts. You were maybe in debt or maybe a low criminal or maybe something to that effect and you would work on this farm. So, but you're not getting paid. You're not getting the food. You're not really getting
No.
anything. You're just kind of working on this place. And then maybe if you're lucky, they'll put you in the poorhouse and give you one meal a day. If you're lucky, maybe some medical care. The 1800s were terrible. I would not want to go back in a time machine to the 1800s. I don't care what anybody said. So in 32, well, it eventually, excuse me, developed from this poorhouse and farm, eventually developed into an asylum, a sanitarium, kind of the same thing, and then a hospital. In 1832, it was known as the Wayne County Poorhouse. This was actually quite common, like I said, at the time, as mental illnesses were not fully understood and many poor souls could not work due to their illnesses. So that's another thing. So what we diagnose today as like ADHD, ADD, stuff like that. You're crazy. You're on the poor farm, right? The other thing they would do too, if parents, I always laugh at this. If parents, you say your kids are just being too tough with you, okay. Well, come on, little Billy and little Sally. I'm going to drop you off at the poor farm and have a good life. See ya. I'm out.
I'm
Isn't
done.
that terrible? That's terrible, right?
That is horrible.
Your kids cannot be that bad. If your kids are even, like, smearing chocolate on the walls, be a parent, right? And be like, "Okay, well, you're going to timeout,
Discipline. Yeah.
time to discipline, and you're gonna clean that up. Mommy and daddy are gonna help you clean that up." I'm not taking them to a poor farm and freaking throw them on there with a bunch of, who knows, maybe schizophrenics, and I'm not trying to make fun of any mental illnesses, but there are people, I don't know, like pedophilia?
Yeah, there were criminals at poorhouses.
Correct. Unbelievable. So anyway, so these folks ended up in the poorhouses around the country, provide, like I said, these poorhouses provided food, shelter, but there was no medical treatment for their condition. And I can't stress that enough. So you basically, here's your onion and your lice-ridden bed. Yeah, good luck with that. Right? Yeah. So those who lived in these poorhouses were referred to as inmates. May want to change that name. Their lives were filled with the drudgery of daily labor and little comfort for their afflictions. So again, one of the things that people don't understand is if you got hurt, let's say you're shoveling and you hit your foot. Well, in today's world, you go to the emergency room, right? It's stupid. I cut my foot with a shovel. Okay, we'll bandage it up here, take some painkillers. You'll be all right. Or set the broken. Not there. You walk around with a broken foot for the rest of your life. You're maimed. And I can't stress that enough, how terrible that was. So 1913, though, however, the poorhouse became known as the Eloise Mental Hospital. And there were actual attempts, this is okay, I don't know, believe what you want to believe, at treating mental illness as a medical condition. But again, this is medical science in the early 90s. They did a lot where, for example, they thought tuberculosis, open the window in the middle of winter, get some fresh
Just give
air.
them some cold air. They'll be all right.
Yeah, come on. Yeah, get some fresh air in there. What are you guys complaining about? You got fresh air. So, in its prime, this is crazy, Ashley. Eloise consisted of, like I said, 78 buildings on 902 acres with 10,000 patients, along with 2,000 staff. There were 12,000 people. 12,000 people. That's a medium-sized city, right?
Yes.
USA, medium-sized city. Imagine taking your medium-sized city and sticking it right in the middle of nowhere, and what could go wrong, right?
Nothing. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be a good time.
So, like I said, it was the largest psychiatric hospital, which I didn't know that, in the United States at the time. The complex was self-sufficient, having, like I said, its own police and fire departments. Also, it was along a railroad trolley system, and like I said, it included a bakery. They also had an amusement hall. I don't know if people are really having fun. Like, hey, everybody, let's play bingo. I don't know.
Uh,
Yeah, it just blows you away. They did have a laundry facility, okay, post office, and a power plant. And like I said, it had its own farm, which included dairy cattle, a pig farm, a root cellar, tobacco curing, and greenhouses. So stop for a second. This doesn't sound too bad if you take away all the mistreatment and the ugliness that's happening. You're thinking, wait a minute, I got my own little city here. I got everything I need. Back in 1800s, it's not exactly you could jump into your minivan and go to the store and pick up some things and go to the local convenience store. So, right? It doesn't sound bad. Oh, okay, I got some fresh fruit. I got, I can have a smoke. I can have some bacon. I got a root cellar. And not so bad. Okay. The poorhouse, though, philosophy was manual labor was indeed therapeutic in the hospital setting. So they didn't care. You had any conditions, whatever they might be, you worked. Working was the cure. And we're not talking like 8 to 5. We're talking like 5 to in the morning till 9 at night, maybe longer. The sun goes down. You know
wow.
what I mean? It's just imagine that. And you're talking kids, you're talking all ages. You're not talking, grandma and grandpa. You just want to sit on your rocking chairs and have a smoke and have some carrots. I don't know. Nope. Get out there. That's crazy. Crazy. So, but Eloise also serviced Michigan as a fully functional hospital as well. Okay. Patients came from Detroit and other communities to have x rays. The facility also housed the first kidney dialysis unit in the state of Michigan. Okay. And they pioneered the use of music therapy. Interesting. Insulin was used to treat people at the hospital. In many ways, Eloise was a model of scientific advancement in the medical field. Now, isn't that interesting that they had all this stuff, like, top in the medical field, but they were still basically, in my opinion, I don't wanna use this word loosely, but enslaving people to
Yeah.
go on a poorhouse, poor farm, and I'm guessing none of these people got these treatment. Maybe they needed insulin, maybe they needed kidney dialysis or whatever. So I'm gonna stop right there before we get into some other things here. What do you think so far of this hospital? It doesn't sound bad, but there's also a dark side to it, right?
Absolutely. Like, it is because, I mean, yeah, if you just look at it for face value, it sounds, "Oh, great. You got everything you need. Why would you ever leave?" But you got 12,000 people, 10,000 of those people have some kind of medical condition or mental health condition, and you only have 2,000 people to take care of those 10,000 people with conditions that need to be treated. That sounds like a disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah, yeah. So let's get into that disaster waiting to happen.
All right.
Unfortunately, the advancements in mental health were not so swift. The use of shock therapy was employed at Eloise was a technique used in psychiatry to treat depressive disorders or illnesses by inducing seizures or other extreme brain states. It was started in the 1930s to use electric shock to cause seizures. It often left the patient in a vegetative state. Yeah, so it's
Boy,
basically hook you up to a car battery and let's zap you. See what
zap
happens.
that. Let's see what happens. Let's
Yeah,
see what happens.
yeah,
We'll be all right.
stick your foot in this puddle of water, hold on to these jumper cables, and let's go. But this was when mental health research would, like I said, in its infancy, so many patients were used as guinea pigs by the doctor. As it happened, Eloise had many patients which to practice on, emphasize practice. So
Mm,
a lot of these poor people, they're not going to go missing. Nobody cared. Nobody cared. You know, like I said, they've been there. Maybe their family has left them, abandoned them. So if you wanna say, "Let's try this new drug, a little more shocking," whatever, yeah, no one's gonna miss them when they die. That's why there's over 7,000 people buried there,
my God.
and we don't know who they are. As the years went on, the institution grew larger and larger, a reflection of increase in the population in Detroit area. From only 35 residents, this is funny, in 1839 in Detroit and the surrounding areas in this hospital, the complex grew to, like I said, about 10,000 residents at its peak in the Great Depression of the early 1930s. So again, it like started out like 35 people just on the poor farm doing whatever to what I said over 10,000, a little bit more. Out of pain and confusion contained within, Eloise Horse spawned the ghost of lost souls, begging to be treated as human beings. This facility would become a place of fear, a sanitary of torment for those with mental health issues. And keep in mind, during this time, many people were committed to such facilities with no mental health condition whatsoever. Remember what I said earlier? Your kids are
Mhm.
just on a sugar high, or your wife is maybe being a little bit mouthy that day.
Or she was on her period.
Exactly. Maybe she's
Mhm.
menopausal or something going on that could be treated in today's world with therapy, proper medication, exercise, diet. Well, not back then. So the wife's getting a little bit too out of control. Well, guess what? You're in the hospital. So this is the other thing too. Many unfaithful women were committed by their husbands. So your wife cheated on you? Oh, honey, that's a mental health issue. In you
Be
go.
crazy.
In you go.
I didn't know that.
Is that as a woman, that's not a good thing, but does kinda make you laugh a little bit, like,
That one makes me chuckle. That one makes me chuckle. I knew about how women could be put into these sanitariums and all these things because of just being a woman and being emotional or being on your period or being menopausal, but I did not know about the unfaithful. That
that's hilarious, right? By the way, here is, if you got kiddies in the room or you're listening, going, being super dad or super mom, you have it out in the van, in the car, you might wanna pause this. I'll give you a second to pause this. Alright. Masturbation was once considered a confinable mental illness. So, yes, if you were just having a little fun with yourself and get caught, in you go. Yeah. We pretty much like, what? Like, Okay, so I laughed at this. I said, "Wait a minute. What if you had a husband catching his wife masturbating? She was unfaithful, right? And she's masturbating. So therefore, in you go."
In you go. Time to go electric shock therapy, dear. Good luck. Yippee.
So again, that's what I'm laughing at. That's not serious. That's just ridiculous. It's like, you know what I mean? You come in and, but it never happened to the husband, right? And us guys are, well, we're animals. So the husband's fine. He can, wherever and whenever, but the woman, no, better not. So again, these people with no true disease would be locked up, you know, and, nobody, whether it's you're unfaithful, whether it's your, pleasuring yourself, whether it's whatever. There's just no treatment. There's no way to, or they shock you. Basically, is your treatment shocking you? Figure it out.
Yikes.
Out of this hellish confinement came all the necessary elements, and this is what we'll get into here in a little bit, to produce the hauntings happening at Eloise today. Duh. I mean, right?
Yeah, of
Ashley, I mean,
course.
just constant
Right.
suffering day after day. Now, Eloise stands as a mere shadow in its grandeur, is crumbling walls, the memory of lives lost in the facility, as well as a few ghosts who refuse to leave. Why do you want to hang out there? But okay. Some claim that ghosts will remain if there has been injustice done during their life. Let me stop there. Do you believe that, Ashley? Do you believe some ghosts will never leave until they get justice? And I don't know what justice means.
Right. I mean, there's no telling what justice means for them, but I believe that spirits and energy can remain where traumatic things happen, whether it be, if something major happened in their life, then they can be tied to that place, whether it's good or bad. But in this case, traumatic, horrible. And yes, I do believe that they can be tied to that spot and stay there. And whether it's justice that they're looking for or seeking for an unfinished business or whatnot, but I do believe that horrible things can create energy and negativity and it become just a hot spot and they stay there and they may feel trapped there or they stay there because hell, maybe that's all they knew.
Yeah, right. And that's sad. So sadly, this may be the reason, like I said, for the number of the haunting. Numerous poltergeist activities have been witnessed within the Eloise complex, with doors slamming, medical carts and tables being overturned, a frustrated spirit probably looking to get noticed. Duh,
Yeah.
again. But possibly, of course, there are shadow figures. Now, check this out, that seemingly drip from the ceilings and ooze from the walls of the place. It's like, yikes! These ghosts actually become, or shadows, become a part of the building itself. So imagine
Mm.
you're a paranormal investigator. I know neither of us are. We want to in the future. Um, and you see this like shadow dripping out of the ceiling in front of you and then coming to, yikes!
No, I'm good.
Two ghostly children, of course, have been seen running around the hallways, and then, turning the corner only to disappear. It is assumed, they were inmates at the time Eloise was a poorhouse, when orphan children often lived there until they were adopted or died. There's your choices again. You either adopted or you live there till you die.
Yikes.
What?
That's horrible. That is horrible and sad.
Yeah, yeah. Just imagine you day after day after day, you think, "Oh, look at this. Look at Ashley. She looks so nice. Could Ashley be my mama?" And then you're like, you walk past and take another kid. And nothing on you or myself. John looks like a nice daddy, Oh, that would be horrible, right? That would be the worst. It would have been a life of toil for the child, like I said, confined with adults. Remember, they put the
Mhm.
adults with the children
Yeah.
together. And, some of these adults had devastating mental disorders, like pedophilia or something to that effect. Possibly they were just talking about these children. People just talk about that they died in their youth, or maybe they relived their lives now as children without fear than when they were alive, carelessly playing games in that kind of purgatory. So you know what I mean? They're just like, "Oh, we're finally free, so now we can be kids." That's sad, right?
Yeah. It is very sad, especially the children aspect of it.
The next ghost that supposedly people see is a lady that appears as a white vapor has been seen manifesting within one of the buildings that still stand. Even her voice has been recorded as she whispers, "Help me," from beyond the grave. Yeah. A residual spirit, her impression seared into the building itself, a haunting reminder of those who were confined here and only wish to be heard, just need to be helped. Here's you probably wondering, "Hey, John, where's the doctor ghost?" Well, here it comes. Another ghost is that of a doctor said to have prowled the halls of the crumbling facility. Even in the afterlife, he searches for an unfortunate patient to practice his scientific method. Yikes. So there's this evil doctor looking for people to be like, "Come here, I need to practice on you."
Mm,
No, I'm not. I'm going. Yeah, if I see that, you will see me running through walls. Like cartoon. Someone
right.
reported seeing a specter drenched in water, possibly a reminder of when hydrotherapy was coming into practice. So hydrotherapy, basically today, a lot of people use it for recovery, getting a cold tub. Some doctors recommend that if you're, have had an accident or, you're preparing for something like an Ironman competition or something to that effect, or just, you need it just to live. But they basically drown the people in this thing. It wasn't like, "Oh, okay, sit in the tub, 5 minutes, get out." No, it was shove. Okay, I think you're okay now. Oh, you're dead? Oops. Too long. Sorry about that.
That's horrible.
Right? That's terrible. So they would do again, a patient against their will would be placed in there, often with their arms and legs restrained. Huh? Like, wait a minute. You put them in this like a bathtub and you tie their arms and legs together? Who thought of that one? Yeah, not to laugh, but it's like, who thought this was a good idea?
This is when my husband would say, "The times have changed, and back then medicine wasn't what it is now." And I'm thinking, there was still common sense, Daniel.
Exactly. Yeah, Daniel.
Come on, Daniel. Get it
Come on.
together.
Let's get it. Other times, they've seen a phantasm wearing a smock stained with blood, presumably from the lobotomy. So in
Ugh.
the 1930s, lobotomies were beginning to be performed. A doctor would hammer a surgical instrument through the skull into the brain in hopes of cutting off negative impulses. Sure. Okay. Obviously, some patients died as the result of the operation, and others later committed suicide. Some were left with severe brain damage. This all happened within the Eloise complex. This doctor is a testament of the treatment. So, yeah, you're drowned, you stick a spike in your head, or you're shot, or maybe something worse. Say they experiment on you, and God knows what that is, right? Possibly he lingers here, this phantasm, tormented by the ghosts of patients upon which he practiced. Whatever the case, he is part of a long litany of spirits who still reside in Eloise. So, what happened to Eloise? Obviously, like I said, it's closed, it's a crumbling building. But there's something at the end here I think it's pretty fun. Slowly, Eloise population decreased. The farm operations ceased in 1958, and some of the large psychiatric buildings were vacated in 1973. The psychiatric division started closing in 1977, with the last patients being transferred out in 1982 when the state of Michigan took over. The General Hospital, which is not really too far, closed in 1986, where when Eloise operated as a mental hospital, like I said, as a hospital, and again, not too great. So those who suffered and died gave their lives to improve future treatment of those with mental afflictions, which is true. A lot of these
Right.
people, unfortunately, who had to pay the price and help doctors to say, maybe we shouldn't drown people. Maybe we shouldn't shock people with a car battery. Maybe we shouldn't stick a spike in people's heads. And it's their ghosts to tell the tale who, still hang out at the asylum. So, Eloise, after being abandoned, what happened to it, I should say, after being abandoned for decades, Eloise Asylum had sat vacant. Recently, someone or something has moved back in. Many have thought themselves brave enough to explore the ancient and abandoned asylum, hoping to solve its mystery. This is weird. None have returned in one piece. I don't know what this article means, but basically, people have been trapped in a padded cell. So, like people, investigators, just telling some quick stories, have gone in there, a padded cell, and they can't get out. I mean, they're trying to get out. Eventually get out, obviously. But a lot of these investigators too, or people just in there, just kids being kids. We were crazy kids once, and we just want to come out with bruises, scratches.
Ooh.
Some have come out with like a broken arm, broken legs. Now, some of that I would say could be it's not safe and someone's not paying attention, but you don't know, right? You have no idea.
Right.
It's horrific. Like what they say is a lot of these people who go in there, investigators, come out with some type of damage to them, whether it be mental or physical. And so that's unbelievable. But before we get into what it is now, I want to stop really quickly and ask you, Ashley, any further comments about this? Anything that maybe you're taking notes that you went, huh, that's terrible, or whatever you want to bring up.
It sounds like Penhurst.
Exactly.
And you were talking, and I'm like, this sounds just like Penhurst. I mean, and it has a very similar timeline.
Exactly. And it's not really well known, right? I came across this. I haven't heard about it. Have you?
Actually, yes, but I heard about it because my guest a few weeks ago, her name is Ashley. She's from Penn Paranormal. I asked her if she could investigate anywhere, where would it be? And she said, the Eloise. And I was like, so when you said it, I was like, this is the second time I've heard of this.
Yeah, that's nice. That's awesome. So, what is it now? It is now a haunted place where you can go and escape the asylum in an escape room adventure that will thrill you and your friend. It's fun for families and groups of all kinds. Experience an immersive adventure unlike any other right here at the Eloise Asylum. So, right now, if you go on their website, I think it's still being run around Halloween and stuff. You can join them for an unforgettable paranormal experience too. Renowned for its paranormal activity, our public paranormal tours are held most Saturday evenings and select Fridays throughout the year. You'll have a chance to explore various hotspots in the former state hospital using your equipment or the asylums. Paranormal investigation teams are welcome, but please note other groups will be on site basically to help you. So they have two different things. So during Halloween, it's a scary thing where people jump out with a chainsaw and chase you around. There's an escape room you can go and get. Or if you're a paranormal group and you can do that and go around and check out all the hot spots. Or if you just want to go on a tour with some guides and them explain the haunted history of it and show you some hot spots and stuff. Here's the thing. It always seems to end that way, right? I know some asylums get turned into apartments. Others get taken down. Others, like this one, are for guests. So my question to you, would you and your husband, or maybe your family too, love to go here and check it out if you could?
Oh, yeah, I would. My husband would. My kids, our son probably, our daughters, probably not. But yeah, we would definitely. I was supposed to go to Penhurst in May for Paracon and something happened. But we love to go. We're not investigators, but we just love to go to experience and see what we feel and just see it because we love history. So yes, I would definitely go. Now, I don't want to get a chainsaw after me or anybody jump out after me. I don't like that, but I would love to go to the property and take a tour and just walk around.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure I already know the answer, but I always ask all my guests this. Do you think it's haunted?
It sounds like it.
Yeah. Right?
Definitely sounds like it. I would like to go for myself just to see what I would feel, but I mean, sounds like it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's really interesting because, again, it has all the perfect storm of this is haunted because of all the suffering. And that's usually the case. So I hope you like that. I found it really interesting because, again, it's not really I really heard of and everything like that. So before we wrap up, Ashley, why don't you tell my spooky friends where they can find you and what's coming up on their podcast?
Well, you can find me on social media. I'm on Instagram, Ghost Gossip Podcast, TikTok, Ghost Gossip Pod, YouTube, Ghost Gossip 24/7. And you can email me, ghostgossip247 at gmail.com. What I have coming up tomorrow, which is Monday, which this is you can just check it out. When you check it out, there's a listener happenings episode. It's me and my husband. We're reading listener stories. And then coming up later, we have somebody who's weird, spooky, scary time. She tells stories out of California and the area that she lives in. And then I also have an episode coming up with my friend who is a psychic medium. Her name's Jessica Webb. She is with Beyond the Badge Paranormal. So lots on track. Like there's a lot coming up. It's great. It's exciting. And then my husband and I are actually going to Boston, Massachusetts, to the Omni Parker Hotel, which is the most haunted hotel in Boston. And we're going to go to the Lizzie Borden House and Salem for our anniversary in September.
Wow, that's awesome. I love that. That's perfect. That's perfect anniversary gift, and
Yep. Lots coming
check it
up.
out. Yeah, and I'd love to obviously look at what's coming up when you guys go there and see what you find and see if Lizzie chases you around with an axe. She probably won't.
I hope not. I hope not. Please don't.
Awesome. So thank you again for taking time out, Ashley. This was a real lot of fun. I really enjoyed our discussion. And like I said, please, all my spooky friends, follow Ashley, listen to her podcast, interact with her on all her social platforms. All this will be in my links when this episode comes out. And, I always say this, and I stress this, is really support the smaller podcasts. I'm not saying your podcast is small, but we're not as
It is.
those huge ones, with millions and millions and all this whatever. Because we're really the backbone here. And I talk to some of my guests too. Like, we're the ones driving things here because the bigger podcasts, they have the bigger guests, they have whatever, they have all the interns getting them coffee and research. It's just us, right? It's just, you
Yeah,
and your husband and you just trying to figure it out and just trying to go from there. So thank
that's
you
right.
again and really appreciate it. And, if you ever would like me to be on your podcast, I always offer myself. If you're looking for a guest, I'll definitely come on and give you some spooky stuff. So thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Ashley. You have a great day and stay spooky.